Okay, good morning, everyone. Today, in the course BUS 3002 Debates in Strategic Management, Learning Set B, will be discussing on developing winning strategy in a VUCA world, big company versus SMEs, the key differences and commonalities. I would request you to start with the introduction of yours, your UNID and your name, and you can start the debate after that. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. My name is Ganesh Dangal and my UNID is 19436741.
My name is Sunshine Rai and my UNID is 19436738.
My name is Sudiksha Tiladar and my UNID is 19436736.
My name is Manjila Khanal and my student ID is 19436745.
My name is Isha Pokhrel and my UNID is 19436734.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Drishi Casey and my student ID is 19436743.
I would like to go into the introduction of today's seminar, where the topic is developing winning strategies, that is small companies versus MNC. So we're living in a fast changing world with a high degree of uncertainty, particularly in business, and virtually every company needs to innovate and even transform into new business areas to survive in the future. And the disruption stemming from digitization is increasing the environmental volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity that is VUCA for most international firms, and challenging the traditional geographic dispersion of their activities and diluting the benefits of building physical presence. So the increased competition and accelerated market movements are visibly in the ever shorter period of time. And following theories of creative deconstruction by Joseph Schumpeter and the concepts of continuity and discontinuity of companies by Peter Drucker, Richard Foster and Sarah Kaplan suggest abandoning the assumption of continuity to be able to outperform the market and as a result survive as a successful company. But this is much harder as most corporations struggle with the major inherent conflicts between the needs to control the existing operations while creating an environment for new ideas and innovations to flourish and radically change the business and its strategy. In this process, each corporation has to rethink not only its existing process and product innovation, but also be able to change distribution channels so that it might innovate its own business model and trade out traditional assets while building up new competencies. So this transformation is not something with a beginning or an end, but rather promotes a different company structure, culture, and behavior. The change today is coming at a very high speed and leading to a new way of thinking about strategy. It's more a general direction and less about a detailed plan. So a research in 2004 by the Economist Intelligence Unit showed that most companies only realize around 63% of the projected performance planned to reach in the strategy. And they also found out that less than 15% of companies track the performance of their long-term strategy at all.
So the function of strategic management is to formulate and put into practice the company's major initiatives while considering available resources and accessing the internal and external environments in which the organization operates. It provides a general direction to the enterprise and involves specifying the organization's objectives. It also helps to develop policies and plans to reach the assorted objectives and then allocate appropriate resources to implement the plans. If accurately executed, strategic management navigates and orientates individuals within the organization and make them more mobilized, encouraged, and make them follow a certain direction and have focus. And according to a journal by Hambick and Chen in 2007, in order to achieve a successful strategic fit, a company should be consistent in its external environment, which includes relationships with its rivals, customers, suppliers, internal goals, capabilities, and structures.
Talking more about strategic management, according to David and David in 2017, strategy management is an art and science formulating, implementing, and evaluating cross-functional decisions that make it possible for organizations to achieve their goals. Strategic management can focus on integrating management, finance, research and development, production, and operations to achieve organization success in obtaining profits and achieving objectives. Henry Mitzberg first demonstrated that the strategic planning process carried out by major corporations ignore the frequent reality that strategic formation is not a deliberate, planned approach, but is emergent or a pattern of response by manager, employees, and other stakeholders which affect strategic change. In many successful Fortune 500 corporations, forward strategic planning is being replaced by strategic learning, which is an ongoing process of shifting strategy based on the existing knowledge and new learning of stakeholders at all levels of organizations. In this new business environment, every manager, perhaps even every employee, must become a strategist and must develop strategic learning skills. For effective strategic learning to occur, a systematic approach to deep insights and empathy-based strategic learning about consumers is required. This is also known as strategic empathy process. It nurtures strategic learning through a rigorous process of stakeholder team-based deep insight development and rapid strategy activation. And this process is equally applicable to both small and medium enterprises and big organizations.
Strategic management can depend on the size of an organization and the pace of change in its business environment. In the US, small and medium enterprise refers to an organization with 500 employees or less, while and multinational enterprise refers to a global organization with a much larger operational scope. Size is highly relevant to organizational strategy and structure and understanding the influencing factors, which is important for management to elect optimal strategic plans. When we examine the main driver of enterprise performance and growth, the rate of investment in intangible and tangible assets such as research and development, brands, technology, human resources, etc., should be examined. Our research has found a dramatic increase in the gap between how much large and small companies invest in their intangibilities. On average, a large company has spent about 330 million in research and development in 2017, whereas the average small company has spent partly $6 million, which is obviously insufficient to keep pace with the large competitors, except through a fortunate discovery. The decreasing productivity in research and development investment makes the matter worse for all small companies. We can see a similar pattern of a growing gap in sales, general, and administrative expenses, which often include intangible spending such as on IT, brands, human resources, and unique business process. Clearly, large firms have increased their investment on the innovation and intangible expenditure and are intangible expenditure and are not basking in their glories. For example, large retail firms and banks are capitalizing on advancement in artificial intelligence to aid their legacy operation. A criticizer may argue this is all normal. Amazon, Netflix, and Microsoft were once upon a time small companies too, but they grew to be large and dominant. Many of the current smaller companies will surely fear similarity. But the problem lies in the most surprising finding of small size trap, which stated that it becomes harder for small companies to escape their class, whereas until 2015 to 20% of small companies became medium size or even large companies each year. The percentage was cut in half by 2017. The research has found similar evidence in the large size category. Until 2000, 75% to 80% of a large companies remained in their group next year, but the percentage has increased 89% recently.
Now let's talk a little about the pros and cons of entrepreneurship and small businesses. Starting with the pros, the first one is flexibility. Small businesses are able to make decisions at a much faster rate compared to a major corporation. Since their teams are smaller and hierarchies are less frequent, they don't have much bureaucracy to deal with, which makes for greater innovation and efficiency. The second one is greater profit. A small business has less employees, which with fewer people on the team and lower overhead than a corporation. Small businesses can stand to profit much more with a lot less resources. With social media and digital marketing, a team of 4 can reach the same number of people as a company with thousands of employees could have. And then we have problem solving as another example. Big companies tend to be held back by dogmatic thinking and narrow-minded leadership boards. Small businesses, in contrast, have younger spirits with willing to experiment um, with their creative and innovative ways, which naturally makes them stand out and help them find new opportunity in the market. Passion. Most startups and small businesses were started out of passion, with a deep yearning to make a world a better place or solve the society's problems. This also drives innovation and ambition, as there's a personal satisfaction people receive from working with limited resources with a greater purpose on mind. On the flip side, there are some cons to small businesses as well. Number one being risk and uncertainty. No matter how many analytics or experts you hire, businesses are bound to experience some level of risk. These may include market condition, the competitive landscape, or unpredictable consumer behavior. The best small medium company can do is study the market and plan accordingly. Workload. Entrepreneurs and small businesses owners should expect to work longer hours to ensure their company remains competitive. Without the resources of bigger companies such as HR, tech support, sales, and most tech support and sales, most people in a small business may have to work multiple roles or undesirable duties. Employees should be careful not to develop excess stress and burnout eventually. The last one being financial risk. Small businesses, even more so, must learn to manage certain cash flow limitations. Poor financial management can lead to stalled supply chains or even bankruptcy.
Now I'm going to talk a little bit about why startups or SMEs need to be aware of digital VUCA environment. As Clayton Christensen 1997 and 1999, the pioneer in disruptive innovation, has shown that changes and innovation disrupts and displaces underperforming organizations and industries, and will induce deeper and faster business transformation. Air, Airbnb and Uber can be taken as some examples of companies whose innovation has made a global impact, and consequently, an understanding of this business's disruption will help entrepreneurs to face the challenges of startups on one hand, and also support the participation of capable entrepreneurs lead in fields such as high technology. And the experience of startups ecosystem is important because disruptions in the VUCA disruption in the VUCA environment affect people and organization deeply. And if SMEs are unaware or unprepared to face the disruptions, the effect will be more costly, and the benefits will be near to zero. And that's same for the economy and society as well. In 2016, the meeting of World Economic Forum, in the meeting of World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab states that this time instead of segmented events, the next industrial revolution will integrate technologies, avoiding divides between physical, digital, and biological spares in cyber physical system, causing major disruptions in management, organization, education, and entire method of production in every industry and governments of every country. And Schwab's also indicates that sustainable solution to foster entrepreneurship required active and effective high participation of women. On the positive side, leaders and organizations able to anticipate and manage disruption with resilience and agility will find ample opportunities for performance improvement in competitive local and global environment. But on the negative side, disruption will be detrimental for organizations reluctant to change and renew. He also stated that there is need for more research and information to minimize the harmful effect of change and disruption in women entrepreneurship.
As my friend mentioned above, SMEs companies in developing countries will have difficulties to survive in VUCA environment. They can run lack of finance in the changing environment. Ariane 2020 has created a conceptual framework focusing on four factors that can enhance the abilities of SMEs to obtain their needed financing, namely SMEs financial literacy, SMEs financial accessibility, innovative lending method from local financial institution, and the local government role in supporting the previous three factors in VUCA environment. They should also be depend on the local government in order to get help through them and sustain in VUCA environment. VUCA environment are seen as a constant threat to frame survival, disrupting or frame existing resources and capabilities as well as a customer base. In two-stage study, the second paper by Astuti 2020 examined how young Indonesian SME owners face this threat and seek new opportunities in VUCA environment. The paper illustrates that due to SME smallness and their strategies as entrepreneur ventures largely depends on owners' entrepreneur leadership style, including entrepreneur marketing orientation.
Now that we've talked a little about the introduction to SMEs and about the planning in VUCA world, I'd like to talk about the challenges in VUCA world faced by both SMEs and MNCs. Since we're talking about the VUCA world, it is natural that challenges are ever so dynamic and unpredictable. And this applies to all business entities, whether it is big or small, because in the end, all businesses are constantly formulating and planning strategies to overcome these challenges brought by VUCA's competitive environment. So the times in which organizations are currently trying to walk the tightrope of survival and success are confronted with the challenges of a varied nature, and there are cross currents of social change surrounding the organization and impacting its thinking and working in manifold ways. The very fabric of society is undergoing a metamorphosis of sorts. So workforce diversity is at its peak, and so is cross-cultural friction, and social mores and norms are also in the throes of cataclysm. So all this is naturally rubbing off on management thinking and leadership behavior in organizations. Also, there are winds of economic and technological changes sweeping the organizational frontiers from all sides. And owing to the volatility to the environment, the challenges that confront us include outdated information, slower response rates, and a tendency to avoid risk. On the account of uncertainty prevailing in the environment, we might have access to incomplete information, and we might feel a strong impulse to relapse into the old traditional ways of working because of the lack of information. So complexity may lead to analysis paralysis, and companies may resort to short-term solutions, which the short-term solutions do not always work, especially in the VUCA world, because you're trying to stay more competitive in the future as well. And finally, the ambiguity embedded in a VUCA world may result in our failure to understand the significance of events and in our in the inability of businesses to take appropriate actions. And having competitive sustainability in this VUCA world is a huge challenge for all the entities, be it big or small organizations. Rather, bigger the organization, bigger is the challenge. There is no panacea, but rather the things are driven by exigencies and contingent planning. So one cannot change the basic nature of the things, and volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity are woven in the very fabric of the cosmos existing around us. The solution lies in visionary and transformational leadership, being able to formulate concrete strategy and to adopt changing technological advancements, keeping pace and abreast with the environment around the market, and above all, being sensitive to even the slightest change in the business environment, and businesses need to learn to prepare accordingly.
Adding to my friend's point, yes, as she mentioned, having competitive sustainability in this VUCA world is a huge challenge for all entities, be it big or small organizations. And strategists world over are busy developing new business models, which are needed every now and then to survive. The pace of technological change is relentless, and the pressure to innovate and keep one step ahead of the competition is getting intense. The mantra for survival now is either adopt or die. If the corporations fail to adopt and modify themselves, they would either stagnate or would cease to exist in the long run. Shinha in 2020, she mentioned that in a business environment which is changing at such a breakneck speed, organization can't afford to plan too much ahead. They need to think and have mentality of here and now.
Now let's talk a little about challenges of smaller firms. One of the challenges smaller firms face is their limitation in selecting an effective corporative strategy, which is also addressed in Porter's well-known study. It argues that there are three major options open to firms: cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. But cost leadership and marketing differentiation both benefit from economies of scale that are generally not forthcoming in the smaller enterprises. And as a result, focus strategies emphasizing innovation or high quality may be the major viable ones. The others could actually hurt performance, because the more dynamic the environment, the more necessary the strategy of cost leadership. It seems that differentiation strategies are the key to success for the smaller firms. One of the way of achieving differentiation, which is also consistent within a small firm's major strengths, is through quality service. The niche strategy is also often recommended for smaller businesses, but they also must be able to obtain a key competitive advantage from it, and their advantage must be based on a craft mastered by the owner manager and the organization. If there is a single difference between the strategies of SMEs and large corporations, is that they seem to be heading in different directions, according to McGregor. Whilst small enterprises, the strategy they have largely appears to be about growth and development, the corporate sector appears to have spent the last 20 years in a process of subdivision and shrinkage.
As COVID-19 pandemic, WHO 2020, Sorabi 2020 has generated a disruption in the supply chain. These are considered an extraordinary risk for companies from different sectors which have have been subject to different types of challenges: demand increase and uncertainty in some product, decrease in raw material supply for production, among others. Paul 2020, the control of inventory is one of the most complex topic of the logistic and the supply chain management. It is a great challenge for small and medium-sized entrepreneurs to compete with multinational companies that have a developed process and financial stability. Therefore, SMEs are focused to increase the productivity levels through decision models to ensure service level impacting customer satisfaction. This has required a collaborative design process between the inventories stakeholders for decision making.
Now I am going to talk about some of the challenges that big firms face. According to Raman 2018, MNCs should face strict government rules and governance guidelines in developed nations. Along with sharp penalties for violation, they also prescribe developing nations as more accommodative and flexible in their approach towards violations. And just like SMEs and every other entity, these are the challenges faced by MNEs to a level they need to match up because they are already established and have a reputation to uphold. Miller et al. 2018 talks about common challenges MNEs face, such as design, foresight, and system thinking in organizations have to be supported by new skills and tools in VUCA environment. MNCs needs to keep experimenting and learning continuously about VUCA. They treat innovation not as a one-off activity, but as a way of life in the management because they need to be less the leaders. This requires change management to be a competency in organizations. Resilience, governance, operating capabilities, and advantages organization and security as it usually found in startups but not in mature enterprise. And business modeling needs to evolve from traditional static models for static environment to radically new business models that are chosen and applied at a unit level rather than full company.
We talked about the challenge differences in SMEs and MNCs, how there are difference in different kind of challenges faced by both companies on both different levels. So now I'd like to give a small highlight to the importance of strategy to overcome such challenges mentioned previously and how SMEs and MNCs can develop and utilize various strategies to stay afloat in the VUCA world. A strategy plan addresses external and internal forces. Market changes can be addressed using Michael Porter's 5 forces model. His model is simple, and Porter identified the forces shaping every market: suppliers, customers, new entrants, substitutes, and rivalries. And according to Peter Merrill, the internal factors that influence strategy are issues such as culture, values, knowledge levels, and business performance. The internal forces influence the ability to address that external opportunity. The strategy will contain plans to make assumptions into hard facts, and the strategy must be flexible. The strategy document must explain how strategy will tighten as uncertainty is reduced. And strategy must emphasize that this is a venture into uncertainty. And as businesses reduce ambiguity, they will pivot and strategy will definitely change. Of course, a good business strategy assumes a certain future, but often these futures are insufficient to prepare a company for the accelerating pace of a VUCA world. And because like VUCA is so dynamic and so uncertain, you can't always be able to predict such business changes in the market. And with the pace of uncertainty accelerating, it makes sense to address this fact explicitly with strategic components and a process that directly and explicitly states how the company will manage the future uncertainties that it faces.
Like my friend just mentioned, the pace of uncertainty is accelerating, and there's need to address this fact with explicit strategy. Surratt and Devine have devised a framework named Uncertainty Management Assessment to assess the readiness of a firm to uncer- to manage uncertainty. In their book, Managing Uncertainty Strategies for Surviving and Thriving in Turbulent Times, six components of uncertainty management are proposed, which are strategic anticipation, navigational leadership, agility, resilience, and open collaboration and predictive thinking. So, strategic anticipation is the capability to determine and the ability to implement a strategy that is highly responsive to an unpredictable and potentially volatile environment. And they have also devised some key approaches to enable it. Some key approaches to enable strategic anticipation for SMEs are as avoid being avoid being internally focused and always say external focused. Develop the ability to do fast option evaluation. Need to constantly question the assumptions of the business, including assumption about environment or SME's mission and their core competencies. The next one is navigational leadership, which is the ability to instill a collective sense of where the organization is, and the confidence and optimism to move forward into an uncertain future. And market VUCA can create strong anxiety and fear in the workforce, particularly in SMEs who are more exposed. So some of the key approaches to navigational leadership are as see VUCA crisis as an opportunity. And next one is to keep staff focused on the new mission and inspire confidence by making sense of external environment. The third one is agility, which is the ability to move rapidly and flexibly in order to shape or adapt to the threats and opportunities arising from uncertainty. And some agility is a core inherent strength of the SMEs. So rather than using this strength for a certain short-term reaction to the goal, here they should exploit the agility with a longer time horizon to buy time to survive in the market. Some of the key approaches for some of the key approaches to agility are the ability to say no to new opportunities, to enable the firm to focus on its core constraints, and fast opportunity exploitation, fast time to market for new products and services. The fourth one is resilience, which is the capability to absorb and positively built on adversity, shocks, and setbacks. Although the SMEs do not have the resources of large businesses, there are approaches that enable management to buy time until generating cash for fast opportunity exploitation. And some key approaches for this are to maintain a low fixed cost and build a war chest even if it's of very little money. They might require it later. And also seek protected core markets such as possible leveraging personal relationships. And the fifth one is open collaboration, which is the capability to dissolve boundaries, forge links, and reach outside through partnership and sharing of ideas and information to gain broader perspective and maximize innovation. And some of the key approaches to this is to develop a collaborative mindset throughout the organization, and developing resources of new ideas by crossing industries borders in government and organizations, share information freely throughout the firm. And the sixth and the last one is the predictive thinking, which is the capability to sense, probe, and analyze previously hidden patterns and trend In order to anticipate sudden and disruptive change, predictive learning provides the outside view to spot new opportunities and to enable fast time to market. And some of the key approaches to this would be exploring customer problems more deeply and looking for opportunities for new value creation and tracking trends in the marketplace, and also learning to act quickly on incomplete and ambiguous information. So assessing the firm against each of the components of the framework enables management to determine the firm readiness and to prepare for the market VUCA crisis, which also mitigates downsides and exploits upside opportunities. And this framework can also be integrated with a firm's strategic planning and execution process, and also apply some of the uncertainty management techniques that can be applied to projects and innovation.
As my friend mentioned previously, I would like to add a supporting example of how ABC do not incorporated uncertainty management evaluation and explain ABC example. In last 20 years, donuts have become an increasingly popular snacks for people. Unfortunately, the cost of ingredient for making do not have seen a wide increase over the last years. During this time, vendors who prepare the dough for the product, realizing the business opportunities, have increased the size of the donut. ABC Donut, or it's popularly known as ABC, is a franchise chain with well over 30 locations in US and Canada. They sell thousands of donuts on daily basis. In 2011, the price per pound of the dough was around $4, going down to as low as 2 per pound. However, by January 2012, the cost has gone up to about 6 per pound. This created a near crisis in the operation. As the size of the dough grew, so did the cost along with the number per order. This resulted in multiple effects, resulting in the cost to survive the same number of donut per order 4 times effectively. The size of pizza was also doubling, which meant more donut per order. Uh, in other words, there was around a 4 time cost increase to serve the same order donut over times. The operation that were available to them were to either increase the price of the item on the bill of the fare, or to reduce the number of topping per serving, or to ask the customer to choose different item that could offset the increased cost. They came with a solution. They did not name the donut by the size but by the kind of topping or flavor that was added to them. Their revenue soon soared, uh, in, increased, indicating the success of the plan. The situation at ABC Donut certainty was volatile and needed an out of the box thinking.
Now let's talk about strategic management in large organizations. Multinational organizations may employ a more structured strategic management model due to its size, scope of operation, and need to encompass stakeholder views and requirements. Multinational companies are tasked with aligning complex and often dramatically different processes, demographic considerations, employees, legal systems, and stakeholders. Due to the wild variance in high volume of businesses, upper management needs to have stringent control system embedded in their managerial strategy to enable predictability and conformity to mission, vision, and values they hold. For example, McDonald's operates restaurants all over the globe. They have different menus in China than in France due to different consumer taste. They also have different hiring standards, regulations, and sourcing methods differently in every country. how does management create a strategy that does not confine these geographic regions and lose the localization of the regional area, yet still maintain each region's alignment with the mission, vision, and branding of McDonald's? So they do it by low cost strategy. Ideally, McDonald's can construct careful strategic models and systems which control the critical components of the operations without hindering the localization. From a strategic point of view, this involves creating a system of quality control, reporting, and localization that maintains the competitive advantage of scale economies and strong branding. These firms, such as McDonald's, often achieve better scale economies and thus can pursue low cost strategies. This requires enormous management competency strategies with crafted strategies at various levels in the organizations, which include corporate, functional, and regional. So, in differentiation, in most cases, low-cost strategies require substantial economies of scale because of the constraint. Smaller firms, because of the constraint, most often the smaller scales use differentiation strategies that focus on innovation over the efficiency. Enabling creativity and innovation is strategically difficult to do as it requires a hands-off approach that empowers autonomy over structure. Innovative ideas are primarily trial and error for smaller businesses, and so instilling creativity into strategic process is also a high risk approach.
One thing we all need to note is that in this age of VUCA world, not only big multinational companies, but small and medium enterprises also have the chance to gain competitive advantage because of this digital disruption and digital transformation. If we actually look and try to understand about the VUCA world, in reality, it is providing many opportunities for even small and medium enterprises through various different mediums. According to Mark Beach and Patrick Rainmoller, VUCA makes strategy development and execution hard, but it does not reduce the relevance of the strategy. In essence, the heart of the leadership challenge that confronts today's leader is learning how to lead in situations of ever greater volatility and uncertainty in a globalized business environment, aligned with the needs to deal with scale, complexity, and new organizational forms that often break with the traditional organization models and structures within which many have learned their leadership trade. So the basic assumptions that the past experience is the key for future leadership success is more open to scrutiny than ever. Rajarshi Ghosh mentioned that the skills and abilities leader once needed to help their organization strive are no longer enough. In this new VUCA reality, more strategic, complex, critical thinking skills and agility are required of business leaders. She further mentioned that today it is not the survival of the fittest, it is the survival of the quickest, and it is the strategy that uses time-based competition in order to create a competitive advantage in a VUCA world. Bashir and Verma in 2017 stated that the fast technological growth and unstable conditions of the global market also dictates companies to improve their values and business models so that they can survive, and the most important thing, have a competitive advantage over the competitors. Business model innovation is one of the way for companies to do the adoption in this state, and it can help these companies to achieve sustainable competitive advantage. Marquez stated that business model innovation is defined as a process whereby a company not only creates a radical new strategy for the business, but rather gives a new definition to the existing products or services and how the product and services are provided to their customers. And for that reason, a new business model belonging to the company should be able to strengthen its market share in the economy.
In the changing environment, big companies can have a backward or forward integration strategy for growth of the organization if they see some scope or opportunity. They can acquire the suppliers or distributors for the growth and increase profitability. In the same way, SMEs can also have forward or backward integration if they find some opportunity, but as they have got less capital, they might have mergers with suppliers and distributors rather than acquiring them. Most of the big companies has got diversified growth strategy. Example, Samsung has got mobile, home appliances, electronics, entertainment related products, which helps them to change their product line in the changing world. But local small companies like carpet manufacturing industries in terms of Nepal can face differences when the market gets changed. Small and medium enterprise can also apply harvest strategy when they see the market is going to be unstable for a long period of time.
Now talking about design thinking approach in organizational learning process as in preempt to disruption of VUCA environment. Sensei 1990 identified system thinking as a way to advance the objective of the organization by taking into account the interrelationship between parts and simply put, design thinking is an approach to creative problem solving, especially suited to semi-structured and unstructured problems. Therefore, it is recommended that management operating in VUCA environments focus organization on co-creative and proactive learning by building design thinking structures to preempt the VUCA environment. And the Harvard Business Review of September 2015 is dedicated to design thinking and the evolution of design thinking. In the paper Evolution of Design Thinking, in this special issue, we can learn that firms increasingly targeting a design-centric culture. The reason behind this is that many products and services and processes are becoming more and more technically complex. For example, GE or IBM, for which software is a fundamental part of their business, acknowledges the increasing level of difficulties for users when dealing with such high level of complexity products. Therefore, the firms to make interaction with their technologies and complex systems more intuitive, and design thinking should help create those kinds of interactions. And the first firm that adopted design thinking were Procter and Gamble, also known as P&G, in 2004, and Kaiser Permanente in 2005, and Intuit in 2007. And over the past 12 to 13 years, more than 147 other established firms have adopted design thinking methodologies. And lastly, design thinking can be practiced in forms of all sizes, either SMEs or MNCs. And design thinking is adopted in all sectors with a predominance for firms active in the information and communication sectors. And about 36% of the 36% of the top 25 startups were such as Airbnb and Etsy were all co-founded by designers.
As my friend mentioned previously, I would now like to talk about winning in a VUCA world. Putting the four dimensions of growth together, VUCA Prime is the key to unlocking not just how business can win in VUCA world, but also to rediscovering its true role in society. To do this, business needs to first put in place the right hardware. Raghuram and Kosori list some of the strategies to stay as a winner. Foresight and agility, an example of Zara. Winning in a VUCA world requires the ability to stimulously manage both the short term and the long term goal of a business. In turbulent and fast changing times, business needs to be anchored in a long term destination while also dynamically managing the short term. The role of leadership is to have a clear point of view about the future and build an organization that can navigate towards what destination through good times and importantly also in a bad time. Consumer centricity, an example of Walmart and AP. As the world changes, consumers are also changing. There is an emerging poor in the developed world and emerging wealthy in a developing world. The way people shop and consume is also changing more than ever. Business must have an insight into a changing needs and aspirations of their consumer to be successful. Think local and act global. And Unilever example to constantly succeed in a VUCA world, one also needs to be globally leveraged and locally relevant. A very common phrase used by multinationals is think global and act local. In reality, there is no such thing as global consumer. Our mantra is to think local but act global. Any organization needs to understand what local consumer and customer needs or want. The leveraging upon the global understanding, technology, and knowledge, it can provide the best solution to meet these local needs. The strength is the ability to combine global scale with locally tailored solutions. Organization of tomorrow needs to either hopelessly local nor mindlessly global. Attracting great talent. The ability to attract, develop, and retain the best talent is what makes business successful in long term. Increasingly, young man and woman wants to work for a company that reflects their own values. If they believe in a common vision and larger corporate purpose, they are motivated to deliver great performance. It is no longer enough to be working for a business that is doing well if it is not also doing well.
I'll be talking about a few leadership strategies for winning in VUCA world that organizations can implement. Leadership plays an important role in both organizations, be it a small and medium enterprise or big organizations. And research has shown that transformational leadership has beneficial effects on organization in a VUCA world. Transformational leaders stimulate team spirit, encourage followers, and enable people around them to be creative, enthusiastic, and opportunistic. Furthermore, transformational leaders help strengthen the common vision of an organization. Boway in 2016 states that for organization to manage the VUCA world well, it is not enough for leaders to be good. They need to be next generation leaders. Hence, they must be good problem solvers, quick decision makers, and adaptable with creative minds. VUCA becomes a keyword that entails a number of requirements. So the leader must understand those requirements, which is openness, accountability, setting boundaries through clear expectations and objectives, a willingness to tackle through tough times, relational skills, regular communication, and giving trust to others. The leaders of today and tomorrow have to operate in a state of what futuristic Alvin Toffler had called future shock in his book. In very simple word, the concept was a pointer to a state of affair that human society would find itself in at the turn of the century, in which change would engulf human society at such a breakneck speed that it would not be able to make sense out of it. He says that the future shock is no longer in the future. It's already very much around us, and leadership, like any other human phenomenon, has to survive in this very future shock state. He further mentioned that the leadership required in the present day ought to be different from that of yesterday, and leaders have to change necessarily in consonance with the constantly changing demographics and psychographics of the disciplines. Pilampura in 2018 has also emphasized in our paper about how effective leadership can align itself with the critical VUCA factors to make an organization acquire sustainable growth. Similarly, Bala Subramaniam in 2018 has given due credit to process innovation, agile strategy, and responsible leadership as the solution to overcome the challenges offered by the VUCA.
One of the strategies for organizations to deal with VUCA is to have adaptive nature. From the research done in companies like Apple, Google, 3M, Target, and Amazon, Boston Consulting Group concluded that organizations today must shift their business models and their leadership skills to become adaptive forms. Adaptive firms can adjust and learn better, become more flexible, and can make changes in their organizations easily, which makes it easier for them to face the VUCA efficiently. 2018 CEO Talent Summit has found some of the strategies which can make both big and small and medium enterprise more adaptive in nature. The strategies that should be implemented in the organization are shaping the cultures around the missions and values, leveraging technology, aligning the organizational structure, and making organization more flexible, establishing a learning environment and leader development. George Karen and Daniel 2018. Companies should apply incrementalism strategy and should be adaptive in nature. Implementing these strategies enables companies to face external and internal factors caused due to disruption.
I'd like to slightly disagree with this point that was just mentioned about being adaptive in nature, because it's naturally a given that in this VUCA world, especially since it's so competitive, it is a given that companies, big or small, does not matter, they need to be adopted in nature naturally. So especially, and then in VUCA world, but I think it's more beneficial by developing personal networks, and it's a bigger benefiting strategy than just being adoptive, because you need to be adopted. Like, it's not a choice. So Kushal in 2016, they mentioned that personal network is among the most important entrepreneur success factors, because it appears to substitute for the lack of experience in business. So what if you're adoptive in nature, but that's fine, but if you don't have the experience, you can't always be ready to adopt to something you have never experienced before, especially because as a business you have to be very competitive in the future, so you stand out in the future and your company stays afloat. And startups also benefit from the expertise of partners in multiple markets rather than over slow accumulation of personal knowledge. So having personal networks has given so much perks, even if you're a startup. So when you're a startup and you have personal networks, it's so much benefiting, because you don't always need the experience, because you don't have the experience, but you can take help from other personal network, maybe other companies, to help you overcome such situation and experience. In short, for startups to benefit from a fast and proactive approach, especially in the VUCA world, networks must be large and scalable to reach multiple markets. In general, social capital variables and strategic network theory held a positive effect on network benefits, suggesting the strategic business networks produce gains for men and women startup founders. And Phelps said in 2007, provided a framework to examine issues of growth in firms and business effectiveness, where the tipping point is a magic moment when an idea, trend, or a social behavior crosses a certain threshold and spreads like wildfire. In this environment, the absorptive capacity of the firm is the ability to recognize the value of new external information, assimilate it, and apply it to commercial improvement. Both Cohen and Leventhal in 1990 and Lepley in 2000 2017 agree that this capacity or agility to maintain personal networks is critical for a firm to advance innovation as a function of the firm's collective knowledge. And accordingly, a commercial network may provide links and relationships that can in turn promote a new business context and a broader access to networking opportunities for the entrepreneurs. And it's not just startups, it's also for MNCs who will always be collaborating with other bigger MNCs in order to gain some kind of advantage with each other. And also they're supporting each other to stand in this competitive VUCA world.
And like my friends have previously mentioned, it is necessary for organization to be as agile in nature. And I would like to propose a VOPA model, which was developed by German economist Dr. William Bosch in 2014, which is an approach, which is a model which is a model for agile and effective leadership approach. And the German word for making up with VOCA acronym can be translated as networking, openness and participation, agility, and plus trust. So networking is channels and channel resources and responsibilities are network, and the knowledge of many is network into a collective intelligence in order to devise specific business solutions. And openness is all information and problems are shared transparently among involved entities. Participation is every employee has clearly defined scope of tasks, responsibilities, competencies, and is involved in relevant decisions. Agility is autonomous working. Autonomous working is promoted and mistakes are analyzed together in team in an open-minded culture. And trust is mutual trust. Mutual trust is the foundation of the entire ecosystem. And the VOPA plus model ultimately requires a company's culture to change so as to allow for greater participation and independence of employees while strictly defining areas of responsibility and goals. The key elements of VOPA plus model are interdisciplinary collaboration within and between teams, transparent and direct communication. Knowledge is made accessible to everyone, and is networked as a joint resource. Autonomous working is promoted and personal responsibility is reinforced. Goals and milestones are clearly defined and communicated, and goals are the sole focus. Taking into account the VOPA model approach provides a flexible framework for mastering the transformation of hierarchical organization into network working. And VOPA plus model integrates networking and hierarchy. It provides stability to managers and gives all employees a sense of orientation, which is precisely what is needed the most in the VUCA world.
As my friend mentioned previously, now I would like to talk about SWOT analysis strategy. SWOT analysis is one of the most common and obvious strategy, but it is very important for both SMEs and multinational to work on. The social change from retail to online shopping has meant retailers have to rethink their entire business strategy. Burberry, for example, changed its stores to replicate its website. The high-end clothing retailer understand that consumers still want to touch and feel product even though they might purchase online. They create customer experience. General Electric used a combination of administrative and outsiders to analyze change in their healthcare sector. Both group has limited connection to recent GE history to avoid bias. They asked which new technology will open new opportunities, which factors social change are likely, which new regulations are likely, who are your future customer and what will they want, who will be your future competitors, will your approach to the market change. The future will have areas you have predict and control and other areas you can't. For example, Hospro could not predict how quickly the internet could develop, but it could see the convergence of the TV and computers.
Now, talking about agile structures, one of the biggest obstacles to change in the organization, one of the biggest obstacles is change to the organization itself. A flatter organization enables leaders to be closer to the action. According to Pisano in 2019, flatness gives people more opportunity to make decisions, but flatter organizations can be more difficult to lead. So, clear priorities and directions are necessary. Amazon and Google, for example, have very strong leaders who are close to the action and involved. According to Merrill in 2020, a good example of a flat and networked organization is Air Group Corporation in Qingdao, China. The world's greatest appliance maker has 75,000 employees, 75,000 employees globally and 27,000 outside of China. With smaller Everyone is directly accountable to customers. The business model is like the internet with small elements joined flexibly. There is limited central direction, but the common goal setting, contracting, and coordination between units are as follows. Business units are either market facing or unit selling, design, manufacture, or human resource. Merits include user involvement in product development and unique customer value. Every unit can buy services from other units or from the outside vendors. New products are developed through open innovation to find customer pain profits. Suppliers who contribute to early design are preferred in the vendor selection.
One of the strategies that I believe that SMEs and MNCs can develop and benefit from is developing physical presence in this digitally disrupted VUCA world. The benefits associated with physical presence have allowed traditional businesses to deal with the VUCA environmental conditions they were facing, even while new companies that had more technological advancement came and they mostly rely on staying online or in digital platforms. However, having a physical presence is always a backup strategy that you can keep. And for instance, keeping an extended network of agents allows to obtain first-hand information from the users, designing specific service and pricing plans that accommodate their needs with higher agility, therefore addressing volatility and uncertainty. Additionally, building network infrastructure and directly negotiating with local authorities help businesses in addressing the ambiguity and provides legitimacy. Being physically present, not just online. Of course, online is also necessary, especially right now. But being physically present becomes agents in these institutional environments and know the rules of the game, which is basic for making judgments about the future. Therefore, so far, the physical presence has been critical and provided a competitive advantage to both SMEs and big corporations.
As my friend mentioned previously, I would talk against it and add some point to that. Butler 2016 and Peterson 2017, however, has contrasting view about the physical presence not being enough as digital disruption is increasingly questioning the actual value of physical presence for established multinationals as research shows how virtual business model emerge where companies establish global platform for interacting with customers and suppliers changing the logic and multinational competitions adding to the contrast in physical presence strategy today we are horrified to find every industry is affected by digital turbulence and current industry model are blurred rapidly. Newer behemoths are emerging in the market with no ownership or previous domain experience. A popular example is that Oyo Hotel is largest branded network of hotel in India and Nepal with no hotels or any service operation experience. Similarly, Ola Cabs area major driving service with no cabs on their own in India, where Uber failed to be as successful as it is around the world. Flipkart and e-commerce companies without an in-house manufacturing or warehouse facilities selling millions of the items to billions of the customer in a year. The companies who have gained are the ones who have moved out of their comfort zones and transferred with better operation excellence, innovation, technology, leadership, agility, and to face the challenges.
Now I'll be adding some points about leading in age of disruption, which will be beneficial for both organizations. Again, today, inspired individuals and organizations across the globe are exploiting this change to disrupt every industry. We can see Uber, Alibaba, and Airbnb as three famous examples of companies that have transformed the way we travel, shop, and stay. 90% of business executives say that their industries will see disruption by digital trends, and this changing trend is already impacting consumer behavior, with 88% of consumers using digital channels at some point in their customer journey. George Lopez in Gartner stated that by the year 2020, more than 7 billion people and businesses and at least 30 billion devices will be connected to the internet. And this whole new world of digitization makes the previous one obsolete while creating massive opportunities for both big companies and SMEs. This digital reality is shaking up some of the beliefs and compelling us to move towards a more knowledgeable IT economy, and how big and small companies survive or thrive in this new VUCA world will also be determined to a great extent by how these companies embrace this new paradigm of digital disruption. Michael Wade and Jalu Shan mentioned that digital disruption not only affects startups, but also has the potential to overturn incumbents and reshape markets faster than perhaps any force in industry. Digital disruption have been paving the way for evolution and growth, and companies that utilize this are dignified to reap the benefits of the new opportunities. Given the major potential risks and rewards, several authors have suggested that abilities to either instigate digital disruption and induce systematic change or exploit accompanying changes in core conditions are crucial for successful firms in the age of digitization. The key driving forces of digital businesses are the consumerization of IT and creation of mobile technology and devices, the convergence and integration of marketing, ICT, etc., and unlimited capacity for innovation. We can also take examples of companies like Netflix, Amazon, how they have been leading and taking advantage in the market with the help of digital disruption by using subscription economy business models.
I recall one of the points mentioned about the issue of SMEs to deal with financial crisis. And to address the situation about financial issues of SMEs that were mentioned earlier in the seminar, I would like to add a recommending point. And one way to address financial issues within a small business is to review, research, and rewrite the business plan. And if the current plan of action, including companies' expenditure on advertising products or employees, isn't working out, it may be time to commit to some changes. And the business owner can also seek loans and grants, especially designed to help give existing companies a boost. And some leaders will allow the owner to refine this business debt, and certain localities and private communities organization offer financial assistance to existing small companies who agree to attend training seminars. And we also have venture capitalists and angel investors who tend to take on bigger risk and may be willing to help a small business owner with the funding he needs to continue operation, as long as the owner can provide the viability of his business plan.
Now that we've talked about different strategies mentioned that can be further developed to stay ahead in today's competitive VUCA world, I would like to point out some of the commonalities that can be observed in the strategies of both SMEs and MNCs. While there is obvious differences in the size, financial resources, and R&D ability, both types of companies are not that different when it comes to formulating strategic plans to survive in the VUCA world. And some of the commonalities are operational innovations involve and revolve around human welfare or knowledge. Every individual concern, view, and access is a part of the business thinking. And another one is innovation is a continuous process as well as strategic thinking, because without innovation, you need new stuff, always keeping up with the technological advancement, since it's so dynamic, and in the VUCA world that is so much necessary. And the third one would be willingness to invest in future technologies. As I just said, technology is so advanced that if you're not willing to invest in any new technology that can help their businesses push forward in the future in the market, then there is no guaranteed successful future. So there must be the willingness to invest, which both startups and big companies obviously do it. And the next one is they are agile and ready to adapt newer business models. And they're leadership ready to combat uncertainty and complexity. So like with VUCA, and if you do not adapt to newer business models and just stick to traditional ways of business thinking, that is not gonna help, especially with the dynamic environment in the VUCA world. The fifth one would be understanding the internal and external resources, thereby enabling higher ownership and management of resources. The next one would be strong tomorrow's competitive edge with today's business innovation and sustainable approach. And just as I said, innovation is very, very important in the VUCA world, especially if you want to stay afloat in the future market. And the last commonality that I found would be both SMEs and MNCs are flexible to work in any environment and operationally ready to make changes.
Now I'll mention about the similarities between small business and large corporations for common problems that they encounter during the strategy implementation. According to the research done by Department of Strategic Management, Wrocław University of Economics, in this case of both group of enterprises, the most common problem encountered during the strategy implementation include, the first one is like attention of employees focused on organizational activities irrespective of the realization of the strategic objectives. And the second one would be management staff being overlooked with current problems, which hinders the strategy implementation. Therefore, it can be concluded that a company, irrespective of its size, when starting the strategy implementation, must take into account the above two problems that I just mentioned that may disrupt the implementation process. The company should also make such a division of responsibilities early enough so that the management staff is relieved to a maximum extent from dealing with the current affairs in order to focus on the activities associated with the effective implementation of the strategy. In addition, it is essential to translate the strategy into operational activities in such a way that employees focused on the performance of operational tasks could see the links between their tasks and the strategic objectives adopted for implementation. Only then it will be possible to achieve a state in which employees are aware that their daily work has an impact on the realization of company strategic objectives.
According to a research performed by Motwani, um, according to his research paper, he examined the applicability and implementation of operation strategy elements by small and large West Michigan manufacturing organizations. For examining the above research issues, the authors tried to identify 7 operation strategy implementation constructs, the factors being um, the factors being sorry
Hello.
While we can find some commonalities between SMEs and MNEs, I have some highlights on differences between the two entities. Research and news headlines are filled with the idea that traditional companies can't innovate and that small digital companies will render and many large ones will be extinct. While we have seen numerous startups of last 30 years not only disturb businesses but become mega corporations of today, we wonder whether this disruption is accelerating with the momentum of digital revolution. In particular, we wanted to see whether large established corporations are being increasingly displaced by new technologies or whether they are actually leveraging digital and other new technologies to innovate and grow contrary to the popular notion. According to Harvard Business Review, large corporations are more and more likely to maintain their dominant positions, while small corporations are less and less likely to become big and profitable. And part of the research of this growing corporate divide between big and small firms, the growing research and development expenditure of large firms. The research also supports Lou Jesner's thesis that the elephants are not basking in their glory, but can indeed dance and are even becoming nibbler from the mid 90s. The size difference between the large and small farms is increasing continuously and rapidly, except for during the recession year of 2008 to 2009. This gap in 1981 reached almost 3.5 billion. In 2017, this gap amounts to 8.8 billion. Since we examine median values, this differences is not driven by the runway success of a few companies like Apple and Amazon. When we also examine the large and small companies separately, we find that the former are getting big while the latter and small are thriving to survive and become big. For examining the author, okay, some of the strategies that should be implemented for making small companies competent to big companies are total lead time, quality, cost, control over cost, uh, effective customer service, advanced technology and innovation. Human resources should be used properly. Organizations should be flexible. The general conclusion of this paper is that organization should be more adaptive in nature and should be flexible and use their resources efficiently. Large firms are able to execute the first six of the seven operation strategy constructs more effectively than small firms. It was also obvious that large firms have the capacity and will spend more on human and technology resources than small firms. There were no statistically significant differences between small and large firms when it came to implementation and flexibility construct. The result is also not surprising, as there is general perception in the literature of small firms do a better job than large firms when implementing the flexibility construct. In case based on statistical analysis, one can conclude that large West Michigan firms are doing an equal good job and implementing the flexibility construct.
Now, moving towards the conclusion of this seminar, it has been observed that we are living in a world where VUCA has become the new normal. And we live in a world where we are surrounded by black swans, and this is the new normal. Companies that that were synonymous with their product categories just a few years ago are no longer in existence. And having said that, it is therefore not enough to stick with what is already known and how things have always been done, but rather the future requires companies to develop new ideas, frameworks, and tools to stay on top of it. And one of the most important components of managing VUCA is strategy and strategic management. And as Claire Brook says, the key challenges today is for organization to focus on dynamic strategic learning and equip managers and employees with the tools and skills to face this new paradigm. Therefore, it is not only the role of leaders that matters, but also the role of employees and other stakeholders as well.
Many companies today have learned that strategic planning can only be done properly once leadership has engaged in strategic thinking. If strategic planning is the what of an organization's strategy process, and strategic thinking is the how, the strategic foresight is the why that is so critical to success in a VUCA world. Here, the cure is actually straightforward: create strategy that is flexible enough for our VUCA world and integrate the critical skill set of strategic foresight before a company makes any more plans. Strategic foresight is especially useful in situations that are characterized as a VUCA context. This may sound simple, but it will require courageous leaders who understand the necessity of reframing strategy for a brand new world. According to Spencer and Salvatico, the VUCA worlds that we are operating in today is swiftly changing, and with each day the pace quickens. Winning in a VUCA world requires an ability to simultaneously manage both the short term and long term goals of a business, which presumes success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts, for which organizations need to have out of the box thinking, out of the box thinking is nothing but a paradigm thinking to face the VUCA world effectively. Leading in a VUCA world that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, not only provides a challenging environment for leaders to operate and to execute the development programs to have an impact, but it also provides a much needed range of new competencies. The new reality is resulting in the realization and the new different capabilities are needed to succeed in the VUCA world. And now we've come to the end of our debate. I would like to thank our teacher, Mr. Sunitra Pradhanam, for facilitating us with the debate. Thank you, sir, so much.
Okay, thank you for the wonderful debate that you have presented. And I have seen a lot of analysis done by you. That is very good. Yes, the debate started with the of strategic management and what are the function of strategic management. Then you go into the SME, or what is the pros and cons for SME, and why digital disruption is important for the startups and SMEs. And then you talked about the challenges for both SME and multinational companies, MNCs, big companies. And these mainly you focused on the workforce diversity, cultural mismatch, economic and technological changes, analysis paralysis, and access to incomplete information, okay, short-term solutions. So these were the main commonalities that you discussed on, and as well as the solution also you have talked about the transformational leadership as well as situational leadership in the debate. And yes, you have also talked about the 4 factors for supporting SME, the challenges for SME, SMEs that was inability to address the strategies. You talked about then about the Michael Porter's 3 general strategies, and also strategy to address the change. Yes, there is digital disruption, there are changes happening. So how do we analyze this change and how do we address to that change by the help of Porter's 5 forces model, as well as you talked about the 6 components of uncertainty management for SME, strategic anticipation, navigational leadership, agility, resilience, open collaboration, and predictive learning. Okay, so yes, the good concept, the survival of fastest rather than the survival of fittest. You talked about the forward and backward integration, effective leadership style. Okay, and also there was some debate on yes, are all the challenges similar, or there are different challenges for both of the organization that we were talking about. We also talk about the organization structure, in which structure the changes can be implemented easily, and what is the similarity in implementing the change in both the structure of organization. Yes, so it was a very like detailed kind of debate that you have given. Just small improvements that I wanted to talk to you is, let us make it more of a debate. Yes, the material is very good enough. The references, the sources you have taken, and how you have cited, that is very good. But let us support others, or present your view, rather than just some of you is still reading from the screen. But do not read from the screen. Please make a plan, and what you have written, write short points and debate on it. That will make this debate even more better. So thank you for your for conducting this debate very well, and I hope the comments that I have given to you, the feedback that has been given to you, will be implemented from the next time from next debate. We have topic 3 as well. So this analysis part, keep it up, and please let us make it more of a debate rather than presentation. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'll stop the recording.